not often that a piece of technology comes about which has the potential to change the world in a significant way. Admittedly, most of the examples I've chosen here are related to physics, but hopefully you see my point. The wheel, the lens, the engine, the printing press, the electric generator have all changed the world in really significant ways. They've been disruptive, but they've allowed development of the human race and the world in ways that we hadn't anticipated. If you think of the development of the internet, we start in the late 90s with things like AOL and search engines, for instance, Google, Ask Jeeves, Yahoo. We then got into social media, we got into what I've sometimes heard referred to as the dematerialization of things such as shopping, books, DVDs, Blu-ray, CDs, and now, of course, we have the gig economy, which is based around Uber, Deliveroo, Airbnb. Education increasingly makes use of online tools as well. What next, you ask? Well, I believe the 2020s are going to see the advent of, as well as AI, digital currencies. You might have heard of things like the blockchain and the metaverse and virtual reality, augmented reality applications. I want to focus on the effect that AI might have on education and specifically how and why we might use ChatGPT in an educational context. You may be aware that several of the organisations and tools we use in education have already embedded ChatGPT or similar tools into their software and systems. The IB have already got policy outlining how we should approach its use in coursework production. Turnitin has integrated it, Duolingo, Quizlet have, Microsoft have integrated it into Office 365, and Wolfram Alpha have also integrated it. So it's important that we start to understand what it is and how to use it. So what is it? Well, ChatGPT is a chatbot which draws on information from across the World Wide Web, the internet, and can answer questions or respond to requests given to it by a user. If you go to openai.com in your browser and click on Try ChatGPT, you will be able to log in. And you have the option of either creating an account or continuing with your Google account or a Microsoft account. The sign-up process is free, although there is a premium version which I might discuss later on. When you do log in, this is what the software looks like. You can see that in the left-hand panel there are several conversations I've got open with it already, and there's a message box at the bottom where I can write my prompt for ChatGPT. Why use it? Well, number one, to save a lot of time. While there are lots of tasks we can do without the use of AI and tools like ChatGPT, you're going to see, hopefully, that this tool could save an awful lot of time in administrative tasks, teaching tasks, planning tasks, and a whole range of other things, allowing us to save time to use it for more appropriate and useful things. Number two, the kids are going to use it. We're all going to use it. We've seen companies, educational organisations have already bought into it. And the truth is that if pupils don't learn how to use it responsibly and effectively, they will be at a disadvantage in the job market and when they leave school. Now, in order to guide pupils effectively, we need to know something about this software and this tool, and the best way is to use it ourselves. okay, and to know how to best advise pupils on how to also. Number 3, it will also allow us to create novel learning experiences. You can pause the video and read this one if you would like. That's something that you couldn't do very easily without such a tool. The next 2 slides show a range of tasks which you might, in an educational setting, use ChatGPT for. So pause the video if you would like to read this slide now, or moving on to the next slide, you can pause here and have a read through some of these ideas. How to use it? Well, I would suggest starting simple. And hopefully you've come across the acronym Keep It Simple Stupid. There are 2 main things that you need to understand. One is that you need to give it instructions which are specific and effective and detailed. You can't assume that the AI knows what you want it to do or assume anything about its understanding. You need to be very explicit. And also you need to read and edit output critically. So effective instruction, critical thought regarding the output. The president and co-founder of OpenAI is quoted as saying, "Prompt engineering is the art of communicating eloquently to an AI." Prompt engineering being constructing an instruction or prompt which gets the AI to do what you want it to. The book released during Easter, in fact, the AI Classroom, suggests using this acronym. So introducing a question with a basic prompt, what do you want it to do? Then giving it a role. So an example would be, you are a physics teacher who is an expert in explaining concepts or designing questions using appropriate terminology. Be explicit in your instructions. How many questions do you want it to write? Are there any terminology or any terms you want it to use? Set the parameters of the answer. How do you want it to be structured? You might talk about, or you might give it a mark scheme with which it needs to constrain its answers. We'll see some examples of this. This is an example, a geography example, including all 4 elements of a request: the prompt, the role, the explicit part, and some parameters. So you could type these as one block into ChatGPT to get it to do its thing. Here's another example. This is English this time. This is actually the example I showed earlier on. I would suggest that you perhaps pause at this point, try to log in and adapt perhaps the last slide, if you rewind, to your subject, to try to create an exercise of some description. Remember that once ChatGPT has given you something, you need to be critical. You need to evaluate it. You need to determine whether it's accurate or not. Identify biases and misinformation in the output. There's lots out there on the internet that ChatGPT can access. OpenAI.com are a company, or OpenAI are a company. They're going to have, even if they don't realise it or admit it, some agenda. There may be some bias there. You can then transform what you get and adapt it to fit your needs and correct it. Or you can get pupils to do that. Other thing is you can engage in a dialogue with ChatGPT. If you're unhappy with what it's produced, you can say, I didn't mean that. Could you change it so that? And get it to modify what its output itself. Right, in this video I'm about to play, I'm just going to show you some examples I've created very quickly using ChatGPT to give you some idea of what it looks like.
Allow me to show you several examples using ChatGPT that I have saved. First of all, if I go to this example, you can see it says, You're an expert in pedagogy and physics teacher. Design a flipped homework involving pre-reading and research on the topic of refraction at an IGCSE level. Include a set of short answer questions at the end to check understanding and include a mark scheme for these. Suggest some pre-reading, give some questions to direct pupil research, and then there are some short answer questions with a mark scheme. It does exactly what you say. I could have improved upon this request by being more specific, but it's just an example of what you get. Obviously, you need to edit and be critical about what it outputs before you use it. Look at this, right? This is an interesting one. Create a 10-question quiz based upon the transcript. You're an expert at writing quality lessons that engage students and progress their learning. The quiz should include key terminology and it should take around 10 minutes to answer. This is then followed by the transcript colon. And then what I've done is I've taken from YouTube the transcript of the video that I was using. So to give you some idea of what I might have used for this. So if I go cognito motor electric. If you go to any YouTube video and you click on the three, and you might need to be signed in, which I'm not. If you click on these three dots down here, you can see that it says show transcript. So the transcript appears on the right, so the text of what's said in the video. If you click these three dots at the top, you see it says toggle timestamps. You can then copy the entire transcript of any YouTube video and then copy it into ChatGPT, which will then allow you to create, or allow ChatGPT to create, a set of questions based on the transcript of the video, which might be useful if you wanted to use a video as part of a research exercise or a Vanco, or indeed even in a cover hash. Other uses, and again, I can't show you everything. You are a careers expert and advise high school level pupils on university courses and what careers might follow on from them. Give some options for students studying physics, maths and economics as to what university courses and later careers may be of interest to them. Not the best worded request, admittedly, but give some ideas. What else? You're an expert chef. Design a quick dinner for one person. Use the following ingredients: tomato, cucumber, pasta, broccoli and chicken. Common staples are available, as are a range of spices. Please include a set of instructions. There are the ingredients and there are some instructions. Again, as with all output from ChatGPT, you need to be critical. These requests, by the way, are all quite basic and brief. I could do a much better job of making a more effective one. You are an expert in creating education itineraries for school trips. You can read the rest of it. I basically asked it to create an itinerary for a certain age group of pupils based around a couple of subjects, and it suggests some sites to see, a very basic itinerary, which might be useful if you're going somewhere which you're unfamiliar with entirely. Finally, this is one where I've asked the software to come up with some answers, or write 3 levels of answer to a 6-mark question in 3 mark ranges: 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, using a mark scheme that I've copied from an actual mark scheme. So I put the question, put the mark scheme in, and then ask ChatGPT in the style of a 15-year-old pupil to write an answer, and it's done it in 3 levels of complexity. I could then, having checked those answers and edited them appropriately if necessary, ask pupils to improve upon them or mark them. Just a few examples.
Clearly, organisations, including school, are going to have to come up with policies and message correctly about the responsible use of tools like this. As Beaks, we should become familiar with tools like this. ChatGPT is a basic example. We should use it and become used to it so that, as I say, we're ahead of the curve and can teach pupils how to do it. We can't do that if we don't know how to use it. Also, ensuring pupils write and work on demand in Hash will allow us to compare what they can do in controlled conditions with what they might do outside of lessons. So we can have methods of recognising cheating or copying, talking to pupils about work, and de-emphasising or eliminating summative assessment of Banco. Some of us do this already. Ultimately, we want Banco to be about exploring, practicing, without there being pressure to get 95% and hence cheat. Okay, we now live in a world where Wolfram Alpha can do an A-level paper and get 95% on it. We will need to rethink how tasks, how assessments are constructed in this new world. In many ways, change in education, which is possibly overdue, may well be precipitated by this new technology. Clearly there are problems. I'm not going to go through them in detail. There's a lot of misinformation on the internet. ChatGPT has access to all of it, and its critical abilities are limited. It could be misused by governments, by big tech to spread messages or be biased in particular ways. We need to be careful of that. It's going to change education and assessment. It's going to change many things about the world. There is a chance that, certainly for a period of time, some of the more advanced tools could be behind a paywall. I'm a believer that the internet is open enough that you will find a way, or eventually this technology will become free, much like search engines are. But definitely worth thinking about. Also, will it make our brain shrink? Well, I don't think so. I think if we use it appropriately, it can augment what we already do. And in fact, if we have to use these things critically, they may in fact provide a stimulus for the expansion of our skill set, understanding of the world. There are plenty of places to get further information. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter are good places to start. Follow some people, just search AI. I'm sure a Google search or even a ChatGPT search will give you plenty of ideas for people to follow. Lots of posts with uses, potential dangers, and so on. Quite a few good books. The AI Classroom is one I looked at over Easter. I'm going to put some information in the TNL team. I'll send a link with the location. Just go ahead and use it. I would suggest sharing some ideas, sharing your experience with Beaks. At some point, I'm sure we'll have some more in-depth whole school inset on such matters.